According to the U.S. debt clock, in the time you hear this commercial, our nation's debt will go up by $1.5 million. That's more than $2 billion a day. Right now, our debt is over $31 trillion and climbing fast. The question is, how do we pay it off? One of the most likely answers is increasing taxes. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are historically low, or later when rates are potentially higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare know what to look for. Barry can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 417-200-3500 to set up a tax strategy session with Barry Watts and the WealthCare team. That's 417-200-3500. When taxes go up, will you be ready? Call now, 417-200-3500.
Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
Welcome in. Sure glad you're with us for this informative hour. Peak 65 is here with the record numbers of baby boomers turning 65 in 2024. What that means around the Ozarks is millions of Americans will be facing decisions about Medicare, when to call it quits and retire, when to start their Social Security. Thanks for joining us for this weekend's very entertaining, very informative Watts on Wealth show. I'm your host, Ralph Hipp, and building up to introducing Barry Watts again this weekend. Hey, Barry, and what's happening around the Ozarks this weekend?
Well, hey, Ralph, I'm kind of busy.
How come?
I'm putting lotion on the burns of all my banker friends. Because I don't know if you heard, but we had some of the banks report their fourth quarter earnings and annual earnings total, and it's not going so well for them. United Missouri Bank, headquartered up in Kansas City, UMB Financial actually, it's got offices here in Springfield, and they saw their net income shrink by 19% last year. That's probably enough to make you wince. Imagine if your personal income shrank by 19%. And of course, that caused the stock price to shrink as well. It's off from its 52-week high by about 8%. And there's another bank that we follow, Simmons Bank out of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, that has offices all across southwest Missouri because they bought out Liberty Bank a few years ago. So you may be a Simmons Bank customer. Well, you need to know that their third quarter profits dropped by, their fourth quarter profits dropped by 71%. So in 2022, they made $83 million in Q4, and in 2023, they only made $23 million. And while it's hard to feel sorry for somebody who made $23 million, or in this case, a big institution that made $23 million, if they're used to making 80-some million and they only made $23 million, I bet that hurts if you're one of their executives. And their stock's off about 15% from its 52-week high as well.
That's a burn there.
That's why the bankers are needing a little lotion on their sunburn or their bank burn or whatever it happens to be. Now, here's an interesting fact, Ralph. Of the 11 sectors in the S&P 500, financial companies, which includes banks, are the number 2 most in-demand sector of the stock market right now. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, that's good news in the financial world. But the bad news was those numbers coming out of the last quarter. So perhaps maybe what they're doing is just sweeping out the dust from Q4 23. And 1 month into the new year, financial stocks are more in demand than the U.S. stock market as a whole. And so let's hope a record-breaking drop on profits, at least for Simmons, portends a record-breaking year in stock market gains for these and other banks. We'll certainly see what the future holds. Call me back in 11 months, and I'll let you know how it all turned out in 2024.
Yes, indeed. I'll make a note of it to ask you on the show, too, on the broadcast and the podcast. Hope you're listening on your mobile device or on the radio. And more good information from J. Barry Watts, the main retirement designer of the WealthCare Corporation there in Springfield. By the way, Barry's number is 417-200-3500, 417-200-3500, and you can have your own chat with Barry. Barry, you mentioned UMB and being based in Kansas City, and once the Chiefs got into the Super Bowl, got to 65 degrees around Kansas City, so we had a little suntan lotion available for the heat wave we had. But you're talking about a financial burn that started from up there. Yeah,
that's exactly right. But maybe everybody in Kansas City is so focused on the Chiefs that they're not too worried about the UMB Bank. I don't know.
That's right. Well, we'll all get over it, and we'll be focusing on that as well. Well, back to this Peak 65 in these baby boomers. This is going to be a record-breaking year for the retirement system thanks to what we call Peak 65. And Barry, it's a stunner. We have an average of 11,000 Americans a day set to turn 65 all through this year, through December. And about 4.1 million Americans will turn 65 this year and every year through 2027. So that is stockpiling up there on the retirement side.
Well, so if you think, Ralph, just to be clear what we're talking about, Peak 65, think about the egg going through the snake. And right now, the egg is at the biggest point is kind of what we would say. There are more people retiring right now at age 65 than at any other time. So the big glut of the retirement is really happening. And that's got to actually be good. The question is, what happens to the markets because of this? Well, I figure it's got to be good for the marketers of Bengay and Advil and Viagra. Because if this big bulge is going through the snake at this very moment and is for these next 4 or 5 years, well, then that means that not only are less people going to work, but more people are standing in line to play at the pickleball court. They're also in line at the pharmacy because they got to pay for the aches and pains that come from the pickleball. And it's good for us in the retirement business because all these people need what we can provide, which is retirement confidence. So I would consider this to be good news overall. And it's not news that you can change one way or another.
No.
It's just is what it is. It's demographic facts.
So we'll see if it's generally good or could be generally bad. And what's the impact on our U.S. economy, Barry, with that many people coming into retirement this year?
Well, it's just a shift in the kinds of products that we consume, Ralph. And that's why I made the joke about Bengay and Advil and Viagra. I doubt grocery consumption is going to change very much. But what will change and increase is going to be the use of medical services. And frankly, that's a great concern here in Southwest Missouri because it's doggone hard to get into a doctor most of the time. I just scheduled this week with a specialist, and it's 6 weeks out before I can see him. Unfortunately, what I need to see him for is not going to be urgent. But there are people that you hear who have what we think is a serious tumor or something like that, and they can't get into their doctor for 3 months. And I think that's ridiculous. I think our legislators need to be dealing with that and addressing those issues. I think it is economic in nature, and I'm highly concerned about that. So the impact on the economy itself will be just a change in the types of things that we consume. But we're moving toward consuming some of the things that we really need desperately to stay alive.
Right. That month and a half for your specialist, is that on your shoulder, Barry, that you were telling us about before?
No, this is another specialist I'm seeing for a different issue. But actually, I get into my shoulder surgeon pretty fast. The surgeon, he'll kind of see you next week. So that's odd. And I don't know what that's about. He's out of the system. He's not in one of the two major systems here in Springfield. And I think that is a part of it. When you give control to essentially the insurance companies and the hospitals, instead of letting the physicians run their own businesses, well, you're kind of at the mercy of the insurance companies and the hospitals. No pun intended about saying mercy. Kind of funny to say it'd be funny to say you're at the mercy of Cox.
That's the one.
That would become an awkward way to express it.
Or that's the two, Cox North and Cox South. Yeah.
Well, the reason for it is because with Obamacare, we got something really interesting. Obamacare tied the profits that an insurance company can make to a percentage of the total billing. So think about this a moment. Obamacare said, hey, insurance company, we're not going to let you make more than X percent. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what it was. I think it was 14%. We're not going to let you make more than X percent. And so the only way for the insurance company to make more money is to have more procedures and more things going on to run up the bill. That's one of the reasons that healthcare is inflated. The cost of healthcare is inflated after Obamacare. And I'm not sure how it relates to our not being able to get in to see doctors here, but I'm telling you, it's a big deal in Springfield. And I've talked to Congressman Burleson about this. I haven't gotten very far with him, I don't think. But when I do see him, I'm always evaluating. So do I want to talk about this or not? Because I don't want to wear him out with it, But it's like, hey, Eric, you need to pay attention to this. I think this should become your signature issue. Because all my life, when you need a doctor, you pick up the phone, call them, and go see them. And in the past 5 to 10 years, after turning age 50, Well, we've got a gatekeeper, and you've got to go through your general practitioner first, and they'll refer you on if they think they need to go there.
Referral.
And they'll refer you where they want to go. I think let the doctors compete. Let them be in business. Let them charge what they want to charge. And what will happen is some of them will start competing. And we're seeing that happen, by the way. There is a doctor down in Ozark. I don't have my data on this, so you can't hold my feet to the fire very tightly. But there's a doctor down in Ozark named Charlin, I believe is his last name. And I saw an advertisement where he was advertising MRIs, magnetic resonance images, at a special, much cheaper price. I don't remember the number, but much cheaper than what you pay for it when you go to the local hospital system. So good for him. Yay. I hope that people are flocking to him and his magnetic resonance imaging machine is full. And I hope the story I'm telling you is correct and that it hasn't changed since I got that information. That was a few weeks ago, but I think it's an important thing for us to consider.
You may get some reply and feedback about that. Yeah.
That'd be wonderful.
But all those, what you're talking about earlier, those billable hours like an attorney would do, getting away from that in our healthcare costs. You know, talking about Congressman Burleson, and you can fix my story if I'm not seeing this correctly. Recently, Barry, you talked to Eric Burleson about maybe a decade down the road, younger people, we're talking about these baby boomers and younger, should have the option to create their own retirement accounts and wean them off Social Security. And he said when he was mentioning the idea of, have you do it yourself, he met with stone silence in the Republican caucus. Am I right about that? Coming up with
a little tweak on that. The story that Eric told me was that he just brought up the fact that we need to fix Social Security. And this was before he was even seated. He'd been elected and they were all having their group meetings to talk about what we're going to do once we're seated.
Waiting to be sworn in. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And he said, he brought up the Social Security issue and he said, we need to keep our commitment that we have made to the people who are already in the system. But for people who are not in the system yet, we need to design a new system or no system at all. Let them go do their own thing, whatever it happens to be. Mm-hmm. We need to design a new system for the people who aren't in yet. And he said the room was full of crickets. There was nobody on any side of the aisle who was interested in talking about that issue. And I think you could argue that's because a lot of people who are in Washington aren't really there to solve problems. And Eric, naively, perhaps, as a new guy, went up there and said, here's the problem. We're going to solve it. And I think all the older, more gray-headed people said, sit down over there, young man. We'll call on you when we want you.
You're not even in Congress yet, but now he is.
And the problem, of course, is then, so how does this flesh itself out and how does that influence Eric? How many times does he get bashed on the head like that until he quits offering new, fresh ideas? Bless his heart. I hope that's not the case.
Yeah.
But Washington is a corrupt place, a hard place to work. We're grateful in the 7th District to have a congressman who I know him personally and know him intimately.
Yeah.
We are close friends, and he is a good guy making decisions for the right reasons. Not always decisions I agree with, by the way. I'll even tell you about one of those just because I think it's funny, Ralph. So a few years ago, he was sitting in the Missouri legislature. He was in the Senate at that time. And we had a bill come through that said in the state of Missouri, you can ride your motorcycle without a helmet. Now, I personally think it'd be a pretty stupid idea to ride your motorcycle without a helmet. I'm not even sure how smart it is to ride your motorcycle. Motorcycle, as they call it.
Or I've heard a donor cycle.
Yeah, a donor cycle. There you go. So Eric was the guy who carried the legislation through the Senate that said you can ride without a helmet. And the reason he did that is Eric is a big proponent of freedom.
Right.
He says you ought to be free to do what you want to do without the government messing with you. And so I'm like, hey, Eric, I agree. But I said, this guy's going to have wrecks and they're going to get all goobered up and they're going to be institutionalized for life. And then we're all going to pay for them. He said, you don't have your data correct. And he pointed out another state. I think it may have been Michigan. And what the study in Michigan with the exact same situation had proven, I believe it was Michigan, was that when people have these wrecks on their motorcycle, they don't survive the wrecks. It kills them. Mm-hmm. So his point was, no, we're not going to be taking care of them, because the vast percentage don't survive the accident. So what he was saying is if you choose to be foolish and ride your motorcycle without a helmet and you kill yourself, well, that's a freedom you have in America. And I appreciate his stalwart hold on the issue of freedom, because I can tell you we've talked about other things, and that is what really drives him is it consistent with the idea of Americans being free?
Yeah. Barry, this is a good time. We're going to change topics here. Time to take a break on the Barry Watts Show, Watts on Wealth, and it's wattswealth.com. We'll talk more about Peak 65 and baby boomers and Social Security when we come back from this break.
We all want the freedom to do the things that make us happy, especially in retirement. To get help planning for a future in retirement, give Barry a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth coming up.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will your roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a pretty good run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather a financial storm? Now may be a great time to get a second opinion on your retirement plan. Call Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare at 417-200-3500 now. They'll examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare today at 417-200-3500 to get your no-obligation second opinion. Don't let your retirement get caught in the rain. Call 417-200-3500. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk.
You're listening to Watts on Wealth with Barry Watts of WealthCare. If you have questions about what you heard on the show today, you can give Barry and his team a call at 417-200-3500.
Hey, welcome back in. This is, by the way, former KSPR anchorman Ralph Hipp, the host for the Barry Watts Show, Watts on Wealth, right here. And be sure to join us every weekend at this same time. Welcome to our new listeners of the show. You'll really enjoy it every weekend and on the podcast as well. We're talking about baby boomers and the Peak 65 and more people coming into the system. We discussed Eric Burleson's ideas about possible retirement accounts on your own. But with all these people coming into the system, Barry, my next question is, can you talk about what stress and strain that puts on our retirement system as more and more people are starting to collect their benefits?
Well, Ralph, you know that Social Security doesn't have a big reservoir of money. Now,
No.
You've been paying into it all this time, and so you may think, well, that money's all going into a big pot, and they're holding on to it until I want to take the money out. No. The Congress raided that big pot of money a long time ago, and they spent it, and they put IOUs in the pot. And so instead, what we have is we really don't hardly even have a pot. We've just got money coming in and money going out. Now, today, there are 3 people who are contributing for every one person who's receiving benefits. Back in 1940, when Social Security was fairly new, it was 50 people contributing for every one person receiving benefits. And you can see how 50 people are putting in and only one's taken out. That could probably work. But here's the news. In 25 years, it'll be only 2 people contributing for every one person taking out. So think about the math on this for a moment, Ralph. If 3 people are making $50,000 a year, let's just say, and they're contributing to Social Security, they're putting in $6,200 per person. That's the employer's side and the employee's side. A total of $6,200 per person, or for those 3 people total, that's $18,600. Now, why did I say 3 people? Because 3 people are putting money in for every one person who's taking money out right now. Now, the average person taking Social Security gets $1,782 per month. That's $21,379 a year. So think about the math here. If 3 people are contributing a total of $18,600 and one person is withdrawing $21,379, well, I think you can see that strains the Social Security system. And that's why the Social Security Trust Fund will run out of money in 2033. And they're projecting that if Congress doesn't do something to fix it, you'll have in 2033 about a 30% haircut in the amount of Social Security you receive. You'll receive 30% less than you were planning on. And that's the thing that Eric was trying to address when he was preparing to go into the Congress. And he said nobody wanted to even talk about it.
Yeah.
There certainly were a number of things he shared with me that were enlightening, shall we say, eye-openers to how things work on the Hill.
which you'll probably just keep between you and Eric, I guess. But yeah.
Well,
You might pop some nuggets of wisdom in the radio show from DC. But, well, it used to be, we said, 2033 recently. Well, that's 10 years from now. Now it's 9 years from now when that trust fund will run out of money.
Is.
So we're counting down to that. For
in 2033, I'll be 70 years old.
Yeah.
Doggone.
Yeah. I'll be 70 in a couple of months. I can't wait, Barry. I'm looking forward to it. Is that crazy?
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'll be 70, and our time together keeps me young. So I'll be 70, and you just turned 60, and I would love to, even I've got 10 years on you, but I bow to the feet of the master and love to hear what you have to say about all this. But hey, if you'd like to have your own chat with Barry, it's 417-200-3500. 417-200-3500 to reach out to the Wealth Care Corporation. Well, for those of us nearing retirement, Barry, can you now go over some of the key questions that they might be trying to answer? You have about 6 or 7 of them here you'd like to go over, I know.
Well, the first thing, Ralph, that I want to point out is you need to think about what you're retiring to, just not what you're retiring from. What are you going to do in retirement? How are you going to spend your time?
So, where are we going with this?
Well, yeah. You're just going to sit on the porch for the rest of your life? Nothing wrong with doing that. But you need to have a plan because, fellows, your wife may get tired of you hanging around the house. So what are you going to do when you retire? Now, here's some other questions you ought to answer. How much income am I going to need in retirement? What is my retirement income number? I call it your sitting on the porch number going to be. How much of your retirement savings do you need to protect from stock market fluctuations? People sometimes say 10 or 20%. I see people who say as much as 70%, 80%, something like that. How much of your retirement savings will still be taxed? Are you going to pay tax on Social Security? Are you going to pay tax on Medicare? You need to consider, do you have a source of predictable guaranteed income that is going to sustain you and your spending over those years? Or is your income not so guaranteed and maybe you run the risk of running out of it? Do you have a plan for health care? Do you have a way to accommodate increasing costs over time due to inflation? And have you put your estate in order so that your assets go where you want them to, when you want them to? And do you have a legacy plan, which is how you pass on those things that money can't buy and death can't destroy, those personally held close values? Those are some of the things that I think it's very important to consider as you're thinking about retirement. And those are the things that we help people with at the Wealth Care Corporation.
Yes, indeed. And wattswealth.com is Barry's website. If you're not near the radio during the week, want to do a little homework or research, reach out to Barry and check out the information on the wattswealth.com website. We want to go over the big 6 steps to retirement confidence. You say retirement confidence is so critical when you're going into retirement. What is your process when they come over to see you there at the office to put together a comprehensive retirement plan, helping them address their Ozark concerns about their income and their taxes and the inflation rate and their cost of health care?
Ralph, right before I walked into the studio to be on this show, I was talking with a client who's been a client for 5 years, and he's going to retire in March. So she's already retired. He's going to retire in March, and they were scared. And the interesting thing is their fear had nothing to do with any facts. It was just that this is a new thing. And the uneasiness of the new thing was kind of getting them. Now, we can't deal with all the psychology that's involved in that, but here's what we can deal with. We can deal with all the financial side of it. And the financial side is found in our 6-step process. It actually involves 5 actual financial steps, and then the 6th step is keeping up with them year by year by year. But it starts with this. The first step, think about a staircase going upward. The first step is income. It's got to last till age 100. And it'll come from things like Social Security and pension and investments. Maybe it'll come from a rental house that you might have, or maybe you've got a farm and you sell some cattle, or you rent it and you get some cash rent every year or something like that. So do you have enough income to last till age 100? And do you know how to figure that out for sure? Will your investments, because they're supplementing your Social Security and pension, will they last long enough? That's one of the questions we got to get to. One of the next steps then is to deal with taxes, because this is your biggest expense in retirement, and it can be your Achilles heel. The third of the 6 steps is investment. What percentage of your assets need to be in safe money, meaning that it can't be destroyed by a negative stock market? And what percentage of your assets can you allow to be subject to the stock market, but it needs to be a low volatility situation? And so, there are 6 steps here, and we've gone through 3 of them: income to age 100, taxes, investment, including safety of principal. The last 2 steps are step number 4, healthcare. How are you going to pay for long-term care? And then finally, legacy. How do you pass on assets? And how do you pass on those things that are more important than money, the things that money can't buy and death can't destroy? How are you going to give those to subsequent generations? And so, Ralph, I think of those 5 things as boogeymen that could take out your retirement. And what we want to do is kill the boogeymen. And then that takes us to the 6th step, which is we get together periodically, about once a year for a typical client, and we go through each of those once again and be sure that we're on the money, where we need to be, doing what we need to do. And if a new boogeyman could have arisen somewhere in the process, well, we shoot him again. And then we make sure that we've got those under control. And that's designed to help our clients be confident. Now, this client who was in today wasn't confident, but it was because they weren't paying attention to the facts. They were all wrapped up in the emotions. And what I said to them was, I said, I can't help you with the psychology. I can't help you. She said, well, our friends are all dying. What does that have to do with your retirement plan, your financial plan?
Yeah.
She was at that stage, though, where she's not going to weddings. Now she's going to funerals. And it was just on her mind. And she said, you talk about living to be 100. Everything I see, everybody's dying at 74 or some statement like that. So I go to the Social Security website. These people are in their late 60s, about 68. And I showed them that according to Social Security, when you're 68 years old, you have a life expectancy of another 16 years, if I recall the number correctly. So that's going to get them to 74 or 84 is what it was going to get them to. And that means that half the people are going to die before they get to 84, but there's another half of the people who are going to live beyond 84. And so it was just interesting how much she was wrapped up in the emotions and not in the facts. And all we can do is hold her hand and bring facts to the table to bear. And when it was all said and done, they acknowledged that my perspective was right on that, and that it had helped them to reset their thinking along the way. And as I was leaving the room, because I told them I had to come do this radio show, they said, so are you going to talk about us on the radio? Well, I didn't mean to. I wasn't planning to. I said, I don't know. It's not planned, but here it is. It came up in the conversation.
Well,
so,
no, we're glad you did.
Talk about
glad you did. And I hope they'll be listening. And they said, yeah, well, Barry, thanks for talking about that. But we're glad to have our hour with you. Barry, we're at halftime now. We're going to take a break, a little bit of news here, and we'll talk more about the conversation of those pieces fitting together in a retirement plan. So great to go over those 6 steps to retirement confidence. To make those steps work for you, step on over to Barry's office after giving him a call at the Wealth Care Corporation, 417-200-3500. This is your host, Ralph Hipp, along with J. Barry Watts, the main retirement wealth designer for Wealth Care Corporation. And after this break, we will be right back.
We all want the freedom to do the things that make us happy, especially in retirement. To get help planning for a future in retirement, give Barry a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth coming up.
We're glad you're with us for the J. Barry Watts program, Watts on Wealth, and this is Ralph Hipp along with Barry. Well, Barry, when we come back from our halftime break to begin the third part of our show in our hour, we have our Social Security question of the day, which is always a great feature. We always learn so much. We think we know about Social Security. We just learned so much more about this from this question. So, Barry, here's our question for this weekend. After a beneficiary has reached full retirement age, their benefits will no longer be subject to reduction because of other income, the $1 for every $2 subtraction you talked about earlier, but the benefits will continue to be taxed forever. Is that correct?
Yes, Ralph, I'm afraid to say it is correct. So here's what you need to understand on that particular topic. If you take Social Security early at age 62, for example, and then you decide to go back to work, well, if you earn more than about $21,000, a little over that, then the government is going to start taking $1 for every $2 you earn over that amount. So if you're planning to work in retirement, even just part-time, make more than $21,000, it doesn't make sense to take Social Security. Now, once you have reached full retirement age and after full retirement age, well, then that limit goes away. You can make as much money as you want, and there won't be any penalty against your Social Security if you do that. Now, you do need to be realized that Social Security is always subject to taxation. Currently, up to 85% of Social Security can be taxed. And it's based on the amount of income that you make. That's what drives whether or not Social Security is taxed. Anything married, if you're over about $44,000, well, then you're going to pay a tax on 85% of your Social Security. And if you're single and have more than $34,000 in income, you're going to pay a tax on Social Security. And half of your Social Security counts in the math to determine whether or not you hit those $34,000 and $44,000 numbers. So there are just some things to be aware of because you can wind up paying tax on Social Security. Now, in a perfect world, here's what we love to see. We love to see people who have learned through our radio show and maybe some of the classes that we teach, they've learned what taxation looks like in retirement, and they've learned that if they will utilize tax strategies that we introduce them to, they can in some cases be in the 0% tax bracket in retirement. Doesn't mean they're not making much money. You could make $1 million a year and still be in that tax bracket. They'll be in the 0% tax bracket in retirement, and they won't even be paying taxes on Social Security. And that's a really, really, really big deal.
Those main pillars that we deal with are your income, your insurance, tax strategies, healthcare costs, investments, what you have put away in your portfolio, and estate and legacy planning. So all these pieces go into your comprehensive retirement plan. If you've been working with some different financial pros in all these areas, it might be time to start talking with perhaps Barry Watts. Talk to a retirement planner. What are some of the reasons for that, Barry?
Well, Ralph, people have got things in pieces and parts. And I don't know how well pieces and parts work for you, but I bet if your car or your motorcycle is strewn all over the garage floor, instead of all the pieces and parts going together, you're not going anywhere very fast. And so we find people who've got quite a bit of money in their retirement accounts. They've done a good job of saving, but they haven't really thought about the taxes. They haven't thought about how they're going to save income, preserve income over a lifetime to age 100. They haven't thought about how to create a legacy plan for their heirs. They probably have thought about estate planning, which is wills and trusts and how your assets go to the kids. But how are those closely held personal values going to go 2 and 3 and 4 generations out? And so when you work with someone who focuses exclusively in this area of retirement planning, well, then it allows you to work on all of these different areas in one place. So we talk to people about the main risks that they're going to experience in retirement, including the tax increases that are going to come. We talk about volatility in the markets and the impact of inflation and the high cost of healthcare. And then we talk about strategies to mitigate some of those problems, like, for example, strategies to help reduce your taxes in the future so that you can preserve more of your retirement savings. We talk about how are we going to maintain your standard of living even as the cost of living begins to rise. And then we talk about your loved ones and how you're going to transfer your assets to them and how you're going to transfer your legacy assets, those closely held personal values and beliefs, to them and to generations that you may never meet. So here's the good thing, Ralph. It's all together in one place under one roof. You want all the different accounts and the different investments and the different policies you own to work seamlessly together, your taxes to be incorporated, and that doesn't happen by accident. We had to assemble the team here at the Wealthcare Corporation. And the reason we assembled the team is because I was tired of the song, Three Blind Mice, Three Blind Mice. I don't think I sang that very well. Probably why I won't be getting a job at Branson anytime soon.
Well, we get the idea, though.
You know what the three blind mice are? It's the financial guy who's not talking to the tax guy. So the financial guy could make a mess in dealing with investments and have a big tax implication you wouldn't know. It's the tax guy not talking to the financial guy about the opportunities that you have in your current tax bracket to take more income and ultimately position more money into tax-free because they don't talk to each other. And then the lawyer's involved in this, and oftentimes I'll see the lawyer doing things that are disastrous from a tax perspective because he's a lawyer. He doesn't know taxes. He didn't know the impact impact that was going to happen. And so here in our practice, we brought all these disciplines under one roof so that you can be sure that your estate planning, your investment management, your taxes are all dealt with under one roof and coordinated well. And no longer do we have three blind mice.
There you go. Barry, we're getting to the holiday of love. I've got to throw this in. This is a real eye-opener. Americans are set to spend $26 billion on Valentine's Day, $2 billion on candy, 145 million Valentine's Day cards will be bought and exchanged, and 250 million roses are grown every year just for Valentine's Day. Is that like an extreme expression of love, or does that kind of shock you? Is it just way too much money that we spend on Valentine's Day?
Well, I personally think that's too much money, but then I spend a whole lot of money on my Valentine every day. You know, I buy her new things like lawnmowers.
Yeah. Well, practical
She loves
stuff.
to mow. Wait, don't send cards and letters. She loves to mow. She's thrilled that I actually bought her a new lawnmower.
You know, they can't send cards and letters. All those cards are jammed up in the mail for Valentine's Day.
There you go. That stops it. But I think I think that's a little overdone, but I certainly always make sure she has a card and maybe one of her favorite pieces of candy attached to it.
Well,
make
that's
sure I tell her how much I love her. Because
Kelly
do.
is,
Her name's Kelly Watts. If any of you are listening and you know my bride, Kelly, you say, hey, I heard Barry talking about you on the radio the other day, and he was talking about how much he loved you, because I really do. She's a dandy, dandy girl.
She really is, from what I've seen on Facebook and what I hear from the radio show, and you guys are an awesome couple. So, Barry, since back to some statistics, back to money, well, this is still about money. Since only maybe 3 of every 10 of us have a written financial plan we can retire on, what do you and your team at the Wealth Care Corporation do to help us get started on that?
Well, people are worried about that, and they don't even know where to begin. And most of them don't have a written financial plan to help them feel more stable. They haven't got a written income plan for every year between the time they retire until they're 100 years old. So we've got a process, the 6 Steps to Retirement Confidence, that really builds a financial endurance plan, helping you to be sure that your retirement will endure to the end. And those are things that we want to help people with. It starts by your sitting on the porch number. How much money is it going to take for you to retire and have deposited into your checking account every month just to pay all the bills and do everything you want to do? And for example, I had a couple in the office earlier I was talking to about the fact they're like, look, we really want to spend some money with the kids on vacation and so forth. And I was saying to them, look at your dollars here. You really can spend some money on the kids and have vacation and so forth. In fact, their accounts in their particular situation were growing at about $60-some thousand per year. And so the point was, you can take, in their case, you can take $20,000 and go spend that on the kids and on a wonderful vacation with them. We need, though, for the average folks to look at the risks that they face in retirement, inflation and stock market volatility and increasing taxes and healthcare costs, and then develop some strategies to address all of those particular problems. And that's what we specialize in at the Wealth Care Corporation. So those are the things we like to help people with. And the way you make that happen, Ralph, is we sit down with you and have a conversation and see what your real burning issues are. And from that, then we do an analysis and we begin to tell you how you can work out some of those problems. And you can have this done by simply calling 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500, and ask for a retirement income analysis. And we'll arrange a time to sit down with you. We'll put together your numbers and your situations. We'll map out a strategy starting from where you're at right now to get you to where you want to go. And it probably won't make you rich or famous, but hopefully it helps make sure that you don't end up outliving your money. So get in touch with us right away and we'll help you. You can dial 417-200-3500.
Right. 417-200-3500. And aside from the wealth, the confidence, Barry, that you feel good about it, that's sometimes better than money, isn't it? That you're not all jittery and nervous about where are we going on our retirement. We're going to run out of money. So just have that confidence, right?
Well, Ralph, I know really wealthy people who have no confidence. They're scared.
Really?
They're working every day. And they couldn't spend their money in 3 lifetimes. But they're working every day because they're afraid. And
what are they scared? What are they scared of?
Insurance costs are. I've heard insurance costs are outrageous when I retire. Now wait a minute. Sit down here. Once you get to 65, everybody goes on Medicare, and there'll still be some costs, but it's a couple $1,000 a year. It's going to be manageable. So they don't know what they don't know. And because they don't know, they don't seek to find it out. They just choose to live in their fear. And I want to say to you, quit living in your fear. Let me show you what the facts are. And then help your emotions come in line with what the actual facts are. And what we want you to do from that is to have such a sense of confidence that it allows you to then go to your job and say, hey, I just want y'all to know I'm going to be quitting one of these days. And you tell them what the date is or season is, and they start negotiating with you because they don't want you to go that quick. But if you don't get on it and start reaching toward a target date, you're going to miss the opportunity to retire.
Great. So do that. Get in touch with Barry right away. Call him this week and set up your complimentary conference. 417-200-3500. Barry, time for another break. We're almost through another great hour of the Barry Watts Show, and we'll return right after this.
We all want the freedom to do the things that make us happy, especially in retirement. To get help planning for a future in retirement, give Barry a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth coming up.
According to the U.S. debt clock, in the time you hear this commercial, our nation's debt will go up by $1.5 million. That's more than $2 billion a day. Right now, our debt is over $31 trillion and climbing fast. The question is, how do we pay it off? One of the most likely answers is increasing taxes. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are historically low, or later when rates are potentially higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare know what to look for. Barry can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 417-200-3500 to set up a tax strategy session with Barry Watts and the WealthCare team. That's 417-200-3500. When taxes go up, will you be ready? Call now, 417-200-3500.
Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
You're listening to Watts on Wealth with Barry Watts of WealthCare. If you have questions about what you heard on the show today, you can give Barry and his team a call at 417-200-3500.
The show is Watts on Wealth, and along with J. Barry Watts of the WealthCare Corporation of Springfield, I'm your host, Ralph Hipp. We had a great discussion recently with Barry and a lot more to talk about regarding small business owners and retirement. Of course, Barry, those small business owners, they face some unique challenges getting ready to retire. And if you are your own boss, things look a little different from you as you get ready to do all this. Are you just giving up your business, or are you going to call it quits and really get into the retirement system, the retirement strategies? You really don't have to pick a retirement date and walk away from your job. So, Barry, one step that small business owners do not want to overlook is creating a business exit strategy. This is not a DIY just to walk away from it. They need a plan and a strategy to exit their business.
A lot of people, Ralph, their strategy is they get mad on Tuesday and they are frustrated and they don't want to work anymore, and they just want somebody to buy their business by Friday and pay them cash so they don't have to come back to work on Monday. That's what people want. That's just simply not going to happen.
It doesn't sound like a strategy.
But it's really kind of what people want. And they'll tell you that when you start digging into it. So when I start thinking about exit plans and how you exit a business, I think of it as a plan that moves that business toward longer term goals that are beyond you, and goals that allow for a very smooth transition to the next generation of leaders in that business. Now, the plans are all going to be different depending on the type of business and the size of the business, but the end goal is to help to create a foundation for future goals and new direction for that business. And if you've got your business set up that way, you'll get paid more for it when you do exit. So one of the things that you need to decide is what will be done with your business when you call it quits. Are you going to close it and liquidate all the assets of your business? Or are you going to sell it to a new owner? And it's best if you'll think through these plans well ahead of time so you aren't making emotional decisions about your company and its future, but you're making factual and actual decisions based on the facts. So I would tell you, Ralph, 10 to 15 years isn't too early to start planning your exit and thinking about these things. At 5 years, you absolutely better be on it. thinking about it. I'm 60. I plan to work until 70. The doctor asked me today how much longer I was going to work, and I told him I was going to go all the way to 70. But even though I've got 10 years left, or 9.9 years left, or something
now,
I am every day working on this issue and having conversations about my own exit plan, because that's a really important thing, to have a company that lives longer than its original founding owner does. And in our case, at the Wealthcare Corporation, we've got a 50-year plan. And every year, our 50-year plan becomes a 49-year plan. So guess what we do? We go back and we add one more year of planning so that we know what the business is going to look like and it's sustained, so that we're taking care of multiple generations of your families.
Right. So planning early for that small business exit strategy. There's a lesson there for all of us who want to be retired one day. So Barry says, plan early so you aren't scrambling to throw something into place or make any emotional decisions. And if you're within 5 years and you don't have a solid exit strategy, that could be disastrous.
Oh, well, it is disastrous. Then you have a heart attack and the business is sold in a fire sale. Or I know of a plumber here in Springfield who died. He died in Mexico, in fact, on a trip. And I had worked with him some trying to get his plan together, and he didn't have it together. Because he hadn't made some decisions that he needed to. So it had a good business, and I still see his trucks around town. So I guess somebody's still running that business in some way, but I wonder whether the wife ever got paid on it. I don't know. So here's what we do at the Wealthcare Corporation. First of all, we've got a process that we can walk you through for helping you to get your business saleable. In fact, one of our advisors sold a business not very long ago for $127 million. It was before he became an advisor with us. It was a business that he was working in, and his job as the CEO of that company ultimately was to sell it. And he sold it for $127 million. So when we talk about these things, these are things that we've got experience doing. We have people who've done this. Now, here's a little test for you if you have a business. It's simply this, to answer this question: do you have a job or do you have a business? And here's how you tell. First of all, figure out how much money you're making, and then ask yourself, can you hire someone to do it for less? Because if you can hire someone to do it for less, then you may have a saleable business. What that means is you're getting paid not only for doing the work, but you're getting paid for owning the business if you can hire someone to do it for less, because they could be paid to do the work. But if you're just getting paid what anybody else would have to be paid for doing the same kind of work, you're not making any more out of your business, then you don't have a saleable business. You've just got a job. And there are a lot of people who have their name on the business card, their name on the door of the truck, their name on the door of the office, that don't have a business. They have a job. And you can't sell jobs. You can sell businesses. Fortunately, if you're a few years away from retiring, we can help you convert that job into a business so you'll have an asset to sell when you retire.
Barry, if they're a small business owner or just want to have a retirement conversation with you, and what's the number over there at the office?
Well, we would be happy for them to do that. And the easy way to do it is to simply dial 417-200-3500. 417-200-3500. And the show, of course, today is being broadcast on a Sunday, so there's nobody at the office. But if you will leave a message when you call, someone will call you back first thing Monday morning and set up a time to get on the calendar when we can have a conversation.
That'll be great. And I'll also mention wattswealth.com is Barry's website over there at the business, the Wealthcare Corporation. We're talking to you small business owners on the Sunday show today. There's some similar steps everybody ought to make as they get closer. And Barry, another step for small business owners is appraising the value of their business and assets and investments. So we need to get to that appraisal question.
You know, Ralph, I'm always shocked at what people think to be true that isn't. And the question I want to ask is, if what you believe to be true isn't, when would you want to know? Well, sooner would obviously be helpful. So if you want to appraise your business, what's your business worth? And people go, I believe my business is worth $3 million. Well, on what basis do you believe that? And to figure out what it's really worth, who are you going to call, Ralph? Well, we can introduce you to the right people so you don't make the mistake that is so easy to make, overestimating the value of your business. So it's really good to get a valuation so you have an accurate money number to work with. And then here's the question that follows after that. Well, that's how much roughly we think your business is worth. But what if you drop dead tomorrow? Is your business still worth that, or is it worth less? And we can protect you from that using something we call key man insurance. Now, If you're expecting a certain amount of money from selling the business for your retirement, but the business sells for less, that could be a challenge to you. So that needs to be factored into your retirement planning. And it's really the same thing with all the assets in the business and investments that you've got elsewhere. If they aren't worth as much as you thought, then you're going to have to adjust your lifestyle or figure out another plan for income. So if you're a business owner, you need to get on this every bit of 5 years before you plan to retire, and 10 would be better. And you need to be laying down a plan for what your exit looks like. And we can help you with that at the Wealth Care Corporation.
Sure can. Well, we have one final tip for you small business owners getting ready to retire. And Barry, you want to talk about do not touch your retirement savings until they are needed.
Boy, this is one where a lot of mistakes happen. It's important to understand, Ralph, first of all, if you tap into your 401k or IRA before you're 59 and a half, you're going to have to pay a penalty. You have to pay all the taxes and you'll pay a penalty for tapping into it. And that the total tax and penalty can exceed 50%. Depending on where you're located and what taxes you have to pay. But it can certainly be 50%, and in most cases will be in excess of 30%. And there are also plans that may, 401k type plans that may make you pay a penalty to access funds in that plan, or others may cause your account to lose some of its principal or interest. And if you do tap into this money, there's a chance that you could be losing out on tax benefits long term. So you want to be really careful and avoid accessing funds until you retire and until you have a plan for how you're going to deal with your retirement income and until you have qualified to withdraw that money at age 59 and a half or later. So my point is, don't just look at the pot of money and say, oh, well, there's $400,000 there. Let's go get some. Because when you're 89 years old at the counter at McDonald's saying, would you like fries with that? It will be perhaps because you spent some of that money foolishly when you were younger. So let's have a plan. Let's protect that retirement money. And for me, when I get money put into the retirement bucket for my life, you can't touch it. You couldn't blow it out of there with dynamite. I'm going to leave it there until I retire.
There's a song, Can't Touch This, don't
That's
touch
a
it.
good song.
Don't touch it. Yeah. Barry, we're getting down to the end of another great hour with you and some final thoughts on saving for retirement. Where should you save it? How do we make sure it'll last after you leave your job or close your small business for good? Some of the questions you probably have if you're getting close to retirement. And what are your final thoughts on the show today about saving our money, no matter where we are in life?
Saving's always a good idea. I'm in favor of it. Save it where it will be tax-free to you in the future. And you really need more than just saving. You need an investment strategy for what you're going to do with that money after it's saved in your account. And the closer you get to retirement, the more you need an income strategy for how you're going to pull money out of that after you have stopped earning a regular paycheck. So if you're listening to me right now and you're anywhere within 10 years of retirement and you don't have an income strategy, I invite you to call us because we can help you put together a budget based on your sitting on the porch number so we know how much you're going to need deposited into your account. We can also factor in how much has to come from your investments versus Social Security and pensions. We'll help you find the risks, taxes being one of the huge risks, and identify those and figure out what you're going to do to mitigate them and help you figure out how do you keep your cost of living rising every year as you move along through retirement and it becomes more expensive due to inflation. All this is complimentary. We're happy to help you with it. All you got to do is just dial our number, 417-200-3500, and ask for your retirement income analysis. These are the things that we talk about, and we'll bring strategies to the table that I think will make a great difference for you and will help you retire with a happy life in the Ozarks. Just call us, 417-200-3500.
Absolutely. And that'll do it for another Watts on Wealth show at the new radio home of our expert retirement plan designer, J. Barry Watts. Barry, always great to chat with you, and we'll do it again next time, won't we?
Thank you, Ralph.
Pleasure to see you. Pleasure to have you hear us, folks, and join us again next weekend. I'm Ralph Hipp, and that's it for Watts on Wealth.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.